All right, guys, it's that time again. Welcome back to Identifying God's Best. We have all the important people here. We got my friend Bruce, Hannah.
Hey.
We got me, I'm Steven, your host, and most importantly, we got you watching. We're so glad to have you here. Today, we're gonna have a fun topic. We're gonna be talking about bad romance. But before we get into that, we should start today's video with a wonderful dose of cringe, which is what we all need today. Everybody needs some cringe in their life so that you can feel a little better about yourself now. Especially if the cringe is from your past. So I think that's the question today. What's an example of a poor romantic gesture in your life? It's more fun if it's you, but it could be something that happened to you.
I can go. This happened to me in high school, freshman year.
Always high school.
A friend of mine had a crush on me, and essentially she just followed me everywhere and followed me to all my classes, to the lunch, to get food together, to the library, whenever I do go to the library just to be cool. But essentially, from beginning of the school day to the end of the school day, she would wait for me to walk with me, would even wait near my locker area just to be there with me. The ninth grade me was a little bit shocked and creeped out. So that did not turn out well whatsoever. And there are times in which I intentionally also avoided my locker and just grab all the books I need for the day just so I don't bump into her. So it was not very kind. I was very immature back then, obviously. But thankfully we reconciled and all is good now. But that was a very weird and awkward moment of my life, to be followed.
I love that. And I know what it's like to be on the other end.
Oh, no.
I guess I could go on that note because my life is full of cringe. When I was in 6th grade, I really liked this girl. I had this crush on her, but we never talked. So it was just one of those stupid, you like the way she looks, she's pretty, whatever. I was trying to think of how to get her to notice me. So at Christmas, I bought a present. I wrapped it up all nice. I was really excited about it. I went to her locker. I gave it to her. She was like, "What is this?" I'm like, "It's a present for you. Open it." And she opened it and she's like, "Oh." And then she turned around and walked away. And it was at that moment that I realized, wait a minute, why do I like this girl? And everything became clear. Sometimes you just need those moments, I guess.
Moving on.
Yeah, Hannah, you got a good one?
Yeah, I guess it's more something that happened to me. I had this friend, and I kind of felt like I was kind of getting signals or whatever. So I told my other friend, like, hey, can you just kind of clue him in that I'm not interested? So she did. And she kind of gave me a thumbs up. And then like a week later, I got a message on Facebook. He was kind of just talking to me, and I was like, okay, it's okay. And then he was like, I heard your dad's really strict. And I was like, oh, I guess so, a little bit. And he's like, well, would your dad mind if I took you to coffee? And I was like, oh, my dad probably wouldn't, but my boyfriend would. Ouch. Funny enough, the next day I was at the school in the gym and I had worked out, but like I wanted to finish the workout, like doing the bike, and I was like addicted to whatever book I was reading. So I was kind of like rushing. I wasn't really paying attention, sat down all my stuff on this bike and like kind of jumped on and looked over, and he was right next to me. It was such an awkward, cringy moment. I had like no self-awareness or like aerial awareness, I don't know, and I just happened to sit right next to him, and obviously I'm gonna be there for the next like 30 minutes. That was fantastic.
Hannah, it was meant to be.
Oh yeah, maybe I should go find him.
That was a missed opportunity.
Oh man.
Well, I think we can all take these moments and learn from them. Our listeners can also learn from them, so don't do these things, guys. And let's put all that behind us now, and we'll talk about what constitutes bad romance. So I guess, that is the question for today. Like, is there such a thing as bad romance? What does it look like when romance is misapplied or applied incorrectly? What do you guys think?
Yes, there are many examples of bad romance. So much that Lady Gaga wrote a song about it.
You had to go there.
You gotta get
You
that
had
in
to
there.
go there.
Yeah. When I think of bad romance, I just think of a lot of mistakes that guys and gals make throughout the dating relationship that is extremely unromantic and also really, really ungodly in some of these examples. So I call these bad romance in the sense of the really dumb mistakes that are being made by guys and gals within a dating relationship. The first, it's being emotional. Being really emotional, it's terrible romance. It's bad romance. It's unromantic. And that's not just for the girls. Guys can get really, really emotional as well. When they get angry and frustrated and bitter, they start driving really fast all of a sudden, or throwing things around, whatever it may be. And then for the girls, it could be the floodgates have opened and the eyes and tears unending. That's their specialty attack. that's just extremely unromantic. Even though dramas or TV shows today may show that as like, oh, that's how much in love they are. That anger, of that jealousy, of that passion. But it's just silly. It's just lack of self-control, and it's a lack of selfless love. It's really selfish. So don't be emotional. Second thing that oftentimes, I'm gonna say this specifically to the guys, that I think happens quite a lot. Bad romance is for you to be super rigid and stuck to like the schedule or the date that you planned, that you can't even wiggle around. Halfway through the day, you're like, oh, this girl's not enjoying the hike as much as I think she would. Maybe it's a good idea to pivot, to do something that could interest her, whatever it is. But then there are some guys, I've heard stories of the gals coming back and telling me how the day was like, man, like I tried suggesting something to get the date going, but then the guy's like, no, I planned for this and we're gonna do it. A, B, C, all the way to step Z, and they just are unwilling to listen to any suggestions. When the girl is trying really hard to like give them help, here, move along this item or this event or this activity that I'll enjoy a lot more. So don't be rigid. Every time you share the word, this doesn't have to be like a 30, 40, 50-minute devotional. At that point, you're giving it a sermon, which is good, and it's all biblically accurate. I mean, that's fun, but at the same time, a 10-minute, 15-minute is enough to share that sweet encouragement in the word together and really enjoy each other by worshiping the Lord, praising the Lord through getting to know one another. So I think that's really prominent, I guess, amongst men, unfortunately, is knowing that, oh, you got to be a leader. So they're super rigid and unwilling to make changes, last-minute changes, and be flexible with not just schedule, but with everything else. Something else that I think, this one may be for the girls that I'm going to speak to in terms of bad romance, is playing hard to get is not romantic, which is something that a lot of TV shows and dramas today will also highlight, like, oh, he's into me. What can I do next couple of days to make it miserable for him, to make him want me more? You don't need to do that, because quite honestly, if a godly guy senses that, he's out. He does not want to put up with any drama, because it's just wasting everyone's time. So be sincere and be honest about it. It doesn't mean you can't have fun with each other, but to the point of just like playing hard to get and just trying to make things difficult to an extent, trying to like manipulate his emotions, I don't think that's godly at all whatsoever. So that's also bad romance. The last one that I want to talk about, not seeing reality clearly between the guy or the gal, seeing the opposite gender and really hyper spiritualize them to the point of they're like the Jesus of today. Oh, look at my boyfriend. He is so godly. And look at those muscles. Everything under the sun is like perfect for him. It's like pure white snow. He's like 10 out of 10 off the charts. When in reality, if you really see him clearly, he might be a good guy and a godly guy, but he still could potentially have a lot of rooms to grow in different areas. But I think one important aspect of dating and thinking about whether or not the person you're dating is God's best is to be honest in assessing their strengths and weaknesses and being able to encourage them, to challenge them, exhort them in such a way that they will continue to grow in godliness and holiness. Not to treat them in such a way like, oh, they're like the Prince Charming or the perfect princess for me to pursue after. Everything about them is flawless and perfect. It's me that have to work, but they're perfect. Everything they say, it's like the next prophet or prophetess. No, not at all. So see them clearly. Doesn't mean you can appreciate their strengths. You can, and that's part of just being attracted to them because of their good character. But don't be blinded to their weaknesses and to their temptations, because that's ultimately what you want to do in the relationship, not just enjoy each other's company, but find a way to build one another up closer to Christ-likeness. So those are the 4 dumb mistakes I think oftentimes bad romance a lot of couples and relationships fall into. So being emotional, playing hard to get, being really rigid, and not seeing each other correctly.
Absolutely. I think too, just to add to Bruce's list, is thoughtlessness of the other person. I had a friend growing up. He was in college at this point, but he was telling me like his plan to propose to his eventual girlfriend, which he did not have at the moment. But like he had this whole riding up on a white horse, dressed as a prince, charming, very elaborate, over the top. And all I could think of was, this is all about him. He literally doesn't have a girlfriend. And sometimes maybe it's not big ostentatious proposals. Maybe it's just like a date where it's like the girl's going on it and it's like, okay, this is not for me, this is for him. Okay, this is the things that he wants to do, this is the things he wants to talk about. That's not great romance. And then a lot of times girls, you're just kind of looking at your watch like, got 2 more hours left on this, like, so don't be thoughtless. Think of what you want to do. You really want to go play baseball. I'm sure you can find some guy friends who want to go play baseball with you, but be thoughtful. What would the girl like? What would she specifically like? Don't just kind of be like, oh, she's a girl, she wants to go get her nails done. be thoughtful. That will really help avoid bad romance. And then kind of talking about a different kind of bad romance, kind of moving on from like the stupid mistakes, there's like bad romance. And when we talk about bad romance, we're talking about lustful passions that like fuel acts of thoughtlessness for all the wrong reasons. A great example of this in the Bible is Tamar. Tamar is Absalom's sister. She's very beautiful. She's so beautiful that her half brother is lovesick for her. Fantastic. Yeah, and this brother was from another mother, but they're both David's children. And he has this shrewd friend, the guy that likes his sister. So he goes and talks to this shrewd friend, and the friend kind of builds this scheme to basically trap Tamar. And that's all fueled by bad romance, by lustful thoughts, and playing sick so that the sister would come take care of him. And then when she's alone with him, he grabs her. And this story is like really brutal. If you want to read all of it, it's in 2 Samuel 13. But it's just a good warning to be motivated by love and thoughtfulness and really consideration for the other person instead of lust. And maybe your story might be so creepy, seeking out your own desires, making others sacrifice for that. But yeah, that is one example of bad romance.
Thanks, guys. And I think it really comes back to when we've talked about romance before, you guys have had a helpful acronym for what good romance should look like. You guys mind sharing that again?
Yes. I think we have talked about being thoughtful, being intentional, being pure, and then being selfless. So these are the tips, the 4 tips of being romantic: be thoughtful, intentional, pure, and selfless. So I think that's a good 4 sets of principles to operate to make sure that we're really seeking out not just the Lord's glory in our dating relationship, but also the person's best interest in building them up.
That's right. And so if you find yourself looking at either your plans or the things that you've been doing in your relationships with somebody else, and you're seeing that you're running against the opposite of those 4 things, that's probably a good time to step back and think, how can I be more selfless? How can I be more loving? What would honor the Lord best in this relationship? So I think that really does a good job of at least covering some of the many possible ways we can exercise poor romance in our relationships. If you guys have any extra ones that you've thought of or any additional comments or whatever, you can feel free to reach out to us in the comments or send us a message. We'd love to go more in depth in giving advice and godly wisdom in how to handle these things in relationships. I think this has been a great time. I hope you guys have had a lot of fun. This has been Identifying God's Best, and we'll see you guys next time.